Good evening from London, and hello from me, Dr. Dermot Hudson, the chairman of the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea, chairman of the UK Korean Friendship Association, and official delegate of the Korean Friendship Association for the UK, and president of the Association for the Study of Songham Politics. This evening, I'm going to make some remarks about recent happenings or developments on the Korean Peninsula that I'm sure you've all read about in the press and on the internet. Today, the 9th of June, the Korean Central News Agency of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea announced that from 12 noon Korean time, all communications with South Korea would be severed by the DPRK. This follows strong and militant statements that were made by Comrade Kim Yo-jong, First Department Director of a department of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, and also by the United Front Department of the Workers' Party of Korea. These statements were made in response to the provocative, apparent, and disgusting actions of so-called defectors, human scum, in the frontline areas next to the DPRK on the 31st of May, in which they sent into the DPRK leaflets. These leaflets slandered the dignity and honour of the supreme leadership of the DPRK, but they also called for an end to the socialist system in the DPRK. So the DPRK is now hitting back against South Korea, and we strongly support these justified and principled measures. In the statements of Comrade Kim Yo-jong and the United Front Department of the Workers' Party of Korea, they stated that these measures that have been taken today are the initial measures. The DPRK will indeed go further, and as they correctly put it, will end unnecessary things, and that an enemy will be treated as an enemy. This is a fact, and what has been happening is that South Korea has broken the inter-Korean agreements that were signed in 2018 when respected Marshal Kim Jong-un, chairman of the State Affairs Commission of the DPRK, met the South Korean chief executive on a total of 3 occasions, and the agreements stated very clearly that hostile actions should not be carried out against the other side, and moreover, hostile actions in the frontline areas should be ceased. Moreover, the actions of the South Korean regime are contrary to the whole principle of independent and peaceful reunification based on the concept of by our nation itself. They are trying to force the capitalist system on the DPRK. The South Korean authorities and their followers, particularly the paid mass media, are going to pretend that the actions were just the actions of a few isolated individuals the actions of far right and fascist extremists within South Korean society. But this is not true. Because as anyone who has made a deep study of Korea or has been to Korea knows, in South Korea, the frontline areas are in fact strictly controlled. There is not free access to them. So anyone there is there with the permission of the South Korean authorities, and that's what's happened. The South Korean authorities have connived at these actions. They've allowed them to go ahead, and it's just nonsense for them to try and pretend it was nothing to do with them. It is my opinion that when the old style fascist puppet regime collapsed in 2017, it was replaced by a liberal puppet regime, and we all know that liberals can be very two-faced in that you cannot trust a liberal. And indeed, the South Korean chief executive, he has held out with his right hand the handshake of peace to the DPRK, but in his left hand he has held a dagger concealed behind his back, and it is a dagger aimed at the heart of the socialist system of the DPRK. And these very provocative actions are not simply just an affront to the dignity of the supreme leadership of the DPRK. They're aimed at subverting, overthrowing and destroying the socialist system in the DPRK. And it is my view that the South Korean regime approached the issue of dialogue in a dishonest and two-faced manner. They were not interested in peace with the DPRK or in reunification. What they were looking at was to try and induce reform and opening up into the DPRK to destroy the socialist system in the DPRK, to restore capitalism in the DPRK, and their actions in conniving with the human scum defectors just go to prove this. And we think the DPRK is absolutely right to term the so-called defectors human scum, because they have betrayed their Juche motherland for a few dollars. When you think of it, they've had free education, free health care, virtually free housing, low-cost food, and many other things at state expense in the DPRK, and have enjoyed all sorts of benefits, yet they felt no obligation to the DPRK and betrayed their country just to get money from the South Korean authorities and the US, and to be used as pawns in their the anti-DPRK, anti-socialist propaganda campaign of the South Korean reactionaries and of the US imperialists. I mean, this is absolutely disgusting. And in my own country, the UK, some so-called DPRK defectors have been brought here. They're living in a place called New Malden, where property prices are a minimum of 500k, and they're living in big houses that have been given to them. So these are the kind of people they are. As many of you watching this will know, many of them have been shown up to be complete and utter liars. And, South Korea is encouraging them to try and promote a regime change in the DPRK. But the DPRK is hitting back. It's defending its socialist system. This is very heartening. And I can remember in 2018, certain people were saying that the Inter-Korean summit and the DPRK US summit meant the end of Juche socialism. How wrong they were. Of course, it was wishful thinking on their part, but they were wrong. And even some friends and sympathisers of the DPRK worried about what was happening, and I had people contact me and say, "Oh, why are they talking to South Korea? Why are they talking to the US? What's happening?" Well, these people were wrong as well. The DPRK will not give up socialism. It will not give up Juche. And, what we're seeing happening in the last few days goes to prove it. And it's also very heartening to see many people in the DPRK taking to the streets and holding rallies to denounce the South Korean authorities and the human scum defectors. We in the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea and the UK Korean and French Association and Association for the Study of Sungam Politics greatly applaud these actions in the DPRK, which are just and correct actions. And we say, long live Juche Korea, long live the Juche Idea, long live socialism, long live the Workers' Party of Korea, and long live respected Marshal Kim Jong-un. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you're not already subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. We have a couple of online events coming up, and we hope to, one day, when this COVID-19 crisis is over, to start holding real life meetings. So we hope you'll come along to them. In the meantime, comrades and friends, please stay safe. Thank you for watching. Good night.